Hello, this is Scarlet and Rage podcast. I am Michael, and Rage is with me today. He is feeling better, was under the weather, was not able to join me on the live show, so I had to fly solo that night. We are going to be doing more live shows, of course. There's just so much to cover right now, and so little time that we have to do it. And so we had promised a little more thorough breakdown of the Michigan game, and that is what we are going to give you. Michigan fans, put it in the comments. Are you still on the national championship high, or has it begin to, kind of settle back to reality a little bit? Are you still on cloud nine, or is it kind of like, now moving on? Let us know in the comments how you're feeling. Obviously, it was exciting for you. It was an exciting game to watch, and I gave you a lot of my thoughts about it. And here in just a moment, Jay is going to kick off the conversation with some of his thoughts of your national championship game and national championship. But before he does, if you would please like and subscribe to this channel. Many of you have been doing that over recent weeks, and we thank you so much. And if you have been listening, please like and subscribe today and hit the bell too, so that you'll get notifications every time we release a video. All right, Rage, how you doing after the flu or cold or whatever you had?
I actually don't know what that was, and I still have a cough today, Michael, but I just want to start off and just say, round of applause. Bravo, Michigan. Bravo. Sorry I couldn't be here for an immediate reaction, but yes, I was deathly sick that night. Fevers, chill, muscle aches. I was like watching the game like in a half coma, and I texted Mike. I'm like, bro, I am not going to be able to do this at all. You're going to have to carry this for us. I believe in you, though. But
And I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to do this
yeah,
live thing for the first time by myself. But
yeah.
it went okay. It went fine. So,
Hey, you did
but
good, bro. You
but
did good, man.
glad you're
Again,
back.
oh man, and Michigan, you guys were honestly, I don't know what else to say other than you were a team of steel. You were the men of steel.
Well,
you,
that's
you
a
like that? I could have used your Kryptonian, some of your Kryptonian DNA on Monday night though to freaking like get over whatever illness I had.
yeah,
But to start us off, I swear Michigan's postseason run is probably going to go on some HBO sports documentary with
yeah.
all of the drama and accusations your team went through. Also, I want to be finally honest about something Michael and I haven't really addressed.
Hmm.
The whole Connor Stallions thing, Michael. I want to
Right,
start off a little bit about that. I don't know if Michigan was cheating or not.
right.
I do know that other teams try and steal signs all of the time in college football. But if you were making some kind of major violation with the NCAA or something along those lines, Michigan, I hope you get away with it.
Hmm.
I do. I'm probably
Yeah.
the only Ohio State fan that will ever say that, but I do. If you guys were cheating, I hope you get away with it. I hope nothing happens to your program because if something does happen to your program, number one, it weakens the Big Ten. And what are we? We're an Ohio State podcast first, Big Ten podcast second. You take out the Big Ten's best team and weaken them. What the fuck do we have then? Not much of anything. The amount of crap the SEC has gotten away with over the years, and Kansas basketball and the University of Fake classes in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I really hope you get away with this, guys. I really do. What this does is show a weak, spineless administration in Ohio State that you do not ever comply with the NCAA.
Hmm.
It is not on you to show the evidence. It is on them to find the evidence. not bend over like little bitches like
Yeah.
Ohio State has during the tattoo drama back in 2010.
Right. No, that's absolutely right. That is another reason why the SEC has been so successful winning championships is because they have taken that formula and I'm not saying that Michigan cheated or didn't cheat it. I don't have any evidence of that. I mean, they were doing something, trying to steal signs. How big of an advantage was it? I don't know. How, are they going to get busted big time by it? I don't know. I don't tend to think so. I think like the Ohio State fans that are really holding on to this idea that the hammer's coming down on Michigan, it's kind of a pipe dream. I don't really think that that's happening. I've said that from the beginning. I've always felt that way, and I haven't changed my mind yet. So they're not taking the national championship away. NCAA commissioner essentially already said that. He said, that they earned the championship fair and square. So it's like, what are they going to do? I mean, there's just not, I don't think there's too much coming down from this. And yeah, if you were doing something to gain an advantage and you got away with it, I mean, it's not like it's the first time. The Houston Astros had a whole scandal in the Major League Baseball where they were gaining an advantage through sign stealing. I'm pretty sure they all still got their World Series rings. Pretty sure you still have to put a round bat on a round ball and win the game. I mean, again, in baseball, sign stealing is standard. They supposedly took it to a new level. That's the allegation against Michigan. You've got, of course, the Patriots when they were practicing, filming some opponents' practices. Their wins stand. I mean, they were trying to gain a little advantage. They got caught. They got slapped on the wrist, and that was it. So I think that's probably what's going to happen with Michigan. If there was something somewhat untoward going on there, I think it's going to be a bit of a slap on the wrist and not that big of a deal.
I agree. I mean, again, Michigan is doing the right thing here, and the right thing is prove it. We're not going to help you. Prove it.
Yeah. Why? Yeah. I mean, why would
we help you? There's something that's going to hurt
why
us.
would you help? Why would you help the prosecutor convict you?
Hell no. Hell no.
I mean,
And here's the thing, for all of those people saying like, "Oh, Michigan cheated their way to a championship." Well, I'm pretty sure this thing was discovered like halfway through the season,
yeah.
back in like mid-October, early. I don't remember when it was.
Here's the thing. Look, I'm not being a Michigan apologist. I am just telling you the facts. They had not played a team on the schedule that knowing their signs would have made a crap's worth of difference. When everything came out, every team that had any remote chance of beating Michigan had plenty of advance notice to, mix up the signs and come up with something to make sure that if they have their current signs, they're not going to steal their signs. And so they obviously also played two teams outside of their conference. And they also were under the microscope at that time. So they're not going to be doing anything at that point anyway. So they beat all of the good teams, Penn State, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Alabama and Washington. They beat all
that
of
was
those,
the point I was going to make.
Yeah, they beat all of those teams having nothing, that had nothing to do with the signs.
Right. I mean, at least after the fact.
That's why I don't really care about the signs. Like if they were stealing signs against, Purdue or something, I don't know why they were doing that, but I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. And some people say, well, they stole signs against Ohio State the year before. Maybe, I don't know, the big thing that the big video on Twitter of them stealing the sign, CJ Stroud's throwing a touchdown on that play, so I don't know, and I don't care
again
at this point.
Even if you did, I don't really care. It's on the coaching staffs of the other side to figure out that you're doing it. Michigan fans, I actually spoke, by the way, I just want to say Mozzie Smith, one of the coolest players you guys have ever had. I met him like 2 months ago. I was working an event here in Charlotte. The Cowboys are in town. Met Mozzie Smith. Awesome guy. I asked him about all of this, and he basically, he didn't confirm or deny. Let me put it that way. He didn't confirm or deny, but he did let me know, being an Ohio State fan, that Michigan did have to change everything up to beat Ohio State. But also, he said that it was in Michigan's best interest. Or he's like, if you're a head coach for a team, you got to do whatever is necessary to find an advantage over any of the teams you play against. So, and he's not wrong. He's not wrong there. But
Mhm.
he's an awesome guy. Love meeting him. But for your victory, the Big Ten got a victory on the field, and now it needs a victory against the NCAA, Michael. Just like
Mhm.
every other conference has done other than the Big Ten. So fuck the NCAA,
Yeah.
fuck Gene Smith, and fuck Dark Archie, the head of compliance at Ohio State, who's also just a killer there.
Yeah, I've heard that he's a real hindrance around there. That he's got like
Yeah,
a
I've
vice
heard the
grip.
same thing. I've
Yeah.
heard the same thing. I don't
Mhm.
think anybody is much of a hindrance as what was his name? Kevin Warren.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, the old Big Ten commissioner, that
Right.
left-wing socialist guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
back to the game. Back to the game, Michael. Um, obviously, we heard your breakdown.
Sure.
Uh, immediate post-game reaction show. So I guess I'll give some of my thoughts for a moment. Um, on the lines, when it came to the lines, Michigan, I wouldn't say completely, like not completely, like completely. I wouldn't say they completely bulldozed Washington's defensive front, but they absolutely handled them.
Yeah.
Washington, after the first quarter, was actually doing very well against the run by run blitzing 5 or 6 guys most plays, but they just ran out of gas in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And why did they run out of gas in the fourth quarter? Well, number one, it was the Michigan defense, but Michigan's defensive line, Michael,
Mhm.
did dominate.
Yeah.
They absolutely dominated. Kenneth Grant, remember him?
Yeah.
I made mention of him a few months ago during the Ohio State Michigan game preview. And I even said at the time, I was like, he's probably the most talented defensive lineman between either of these teams. And I don't think any Ohio State fan knew who this guy was outside of the guys who follow recruiting super closely, because he is a guy that Larry Johnson was thinking about offering late in the cycle and getting in on him, but he
Where's he
never
from?
did. He's from Indiana. I think it's like
Okay.
Maryville, Indiana. I don't
Okay.
know where that's at. I assume it's in
Is he the one
Indianapolis.
that basically like bulldozed the guard directly into Michael Penix, like just destroyed him? Is
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's not probably anymore. It's not probably the most talented defensive lineman between either team. He is the most talented defensive lineman between either roster, because that dude is an absolute sick freak athlete, man, man child. Enjoy him for one more season, Michigan, because he's going to be a top 15 or top 10 pick. Um, I think your defensive front, while only sacking Penix one time, made life hell for him.
Mhm.
You hit him so hard, making him throw all errant passes all game. And no, you dumb analyst, Michael Penix just didn't have an off game. He was forced into a bad game by
Yeah.
Michigan. Nothing else. He did not see a defense like that all season. And the moment he did is when the passing windows got a little tighter. He was under a little bit more pressure. He was throwing off station a little bit more. This wasn't just a walk in the park like it was a lot of the game
Right.
versus Texas. So, Michael, any thoughts on the line play? Michigan's offensive defensive line against Washington?
Yeah, I mean they controlled it, and I mean show me a national championship where the dominant defensive line where that team doesn't win the game.
Hmm.
I mean it's like you go back and look at all just go back through them, and the team with the dominant defensive line typically wins that football game, and Michigan certainly had that. Like you said, there was an edge on the offensive line versus their defensive line. There was an edge, but there was a huge advantage with the Michigan defensive line. The Huskies were not; they just weren't able to stop it. And not only that, the DC Jesse Mentor is just a very good play caller. I mean,
Hmm.
he just dials up blitzes and pressures at the right time and brings them from the right places. And so, yeah.
It was a massive struggle for JJ McCarthy though. In the passing game all day. I mean, he had some errant throws, but he did connect on some clutch passes to Colston Loveland over the middle and stuff. I mean, that guy is a monster, by the way. But JJ also made some, I guess, some nice scrambling plays too. I don't know I guess JJ McCarthy was just kind of there. He was just kind of like a game manager in this game. He
Yeah, I
didn't.
mean, JJ's an enigma. I don't know what JJ is yet. I mean, he's obviously a good quarterback, but
Mhm.
we just don't get to see what he can really do because, um, I mean, they run the ball 62% of the time, and then you get in the
Yeah.
national championship game, and he threw. I thought he did a really nice job against Alabama. Taking what was there. But what did he throw for in the national championship game?
I think it was a little just north of 100 yards,
How many
something like that.
how many attempts was it?
18.
Okay.
He
Yeah,
was 10 of 18. I think it was like just north of 100 yards. I
10
could
of
be
18.
wrong.
Yeah, I mean that that's not what you think of when you think of a modern national championship game. So,
Mhm.
Georgia 2021 defense, Michigan 2023 defense is starting to rewrite the script. Defense is starting to become back in vogue in college football. I won't say starting; it's back in vogue in college football. You need a good defense. And a dominant defense is a recipe for elite success. And I also think that the defensive minded coach is maybe a little bit more advantageous in college than it is in the NFL. In the NFL, it's the opposite. They want the offensive minded coach, but in college, defensive minded coaches have been quite successful. I know that Harbaugh's an offensive guy, but he went and got guys, trained in that Ravens defense. So, I mean,
Mhm.
it was going to be well ran.
Absolutely. Yeah, JJ McCarthy struggled. Didn't matter. The run game won the day. It's really not much else to say there. And along that topic, Michael, side topic here. We didn't really plan for this, but now that you mention it, you're talking about the 2021 Georgia defense
Mhm,
versus this defense. Which
mhm.
one do you choose?
Well,
That's a good one.
yeah, I mean, you just like take your pick. I mean, it really is. Just take your pick. I mean, if you
I know what my pick is, and I don't think it's even close.
what?
I'm taking this Michigan defense.
Okay, all right, yeah. I
And
mean,
I'll tell
I
you
can't
why.
argue with
I'll
it.
tell you why. Because that Georgia defense got lit up by Alabama in
Yeah,
the SEC
Georgia
championship
defense
game.
got bailed out by their
Lit
two. Yeah,
up by
yeah.
Jamison Williams and John Mechie, both who did not play really in the national championship
Mechie
game.
played 0. Williams played like part of the first quarter.
Yeah, part of the first quarter.
And was
And I
lighting them
remember
up again.
and I actually spoke to John Mechie, like, not long ago either. And he was saying the same thing. He's like, man, if we would have played, we would have won. And I was
Yeah.
like, hell yeah, you would have won. That Georgia defense, they just lacked whatever. They lacked the pass rushing. They lacked like the secondary speed. I don't know. But I mean, was their defense in 2021 all that much different than 2022? And their 2022 defense got lit up by Ohio State. So it's like, Michigan doesn't get lit up by Ohio State. This 2023 defense, they're ballers, man, and they're so physical. I'm not kidding when I say this.
Mhm.
They're the first defense in a long time that I can say is like all-time good. Like I would put them there. They're the first defense, I guess, outside of USC in 2004
Mhm.
because USC's 2004 defense was just stifling.
Mhm.
But outside of that defense, but like all right, well, basing since Ohio State 2002, only the USC 2004 defense and the Michigan defense from 2023 stack up to Ohio State's 2002 defense, which in my opinion is the best defense in college football history. I don't care what anyone says. Go look how many NFL draft picks are on that team. Look how many first rounders. Every
Mhm.
single one of those guys played in the NFL at some point, and a lot of their too deep did as well. But this Michigan defense, just fast and physical. Fast and physical.
Yeah, I mean they were putting them on islands. They were doing cover zero at times.
Hmm.
Michael Penix was checking to his hot route just like he should, and the Michigan defensive back would have it covered up for a one, maybe at best 2 or 3 yard gain. They were just
Yeah.
they were just sucking it up. And if that guy's not there, right there to make the tackle, then those things are going for 10, 12, 14
Hmm.
yards. And that's usually what Michael Penix was accustomed to in those type of situations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what won the day? Yes, Michigan's secondary. And this was, I mean, I picked Michigan by a field goal in this game. I really thought Washington was going to score some points because, I mean, their offense was the best in the country. But again, Michigan's defense was just that much better. Um, Michigan's secondary, I mean, their defense won the game, but Michigan's secondary, I just couldn't believe it. They blanketed Washington's receivers. I thought Washington, could throw on Michigan some, but I thought, I knew that Michigan was going to cover them better than anyone else. And Jesse Minter, you made mention of that, is a genius. But
Mhm.
wow, those boys just were grown men, freak athletes, and the Washington receivers just were not ready for that kind of speed and physicality. I don't know why Penix picked on Will Johnson so much and he paid for it. It's like every time they threw to him, it was incomplete outside of the one that got called for holding. But, the tackling was elite. You could tell that, like you said, a lot of times Washington thought they were going to create some serious yards after the catch, and they just couldn't break away outside of one play. Like Michigan made some just sound open field tackling that's just textbook. Like
Mhm.
I have not seen, like I said, I have not seen a defense tackle that well in a very, very long time.
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of the game, one of their defenders came up almost like a wrestling shot, stuck the guy right in his stomach with his shoulder pad, stuck the guy, lifted him up, and slammed him. It's been a long time since I've seen a tackle like that, like at that level. You see those kind of tackles, some dominating tackles sometimes in like, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth grade, maybe even high school. But it's rare that you see just a dominating tackle like that, where a guy just picks him up like he's a little kid and slams him in the ground. And, it's,
That's what
they
you're supposed to do, though,
yeah,
in
yeah.
football. It's like people forget what you're supposed to do. It's like, oh, that was a rough tackle. No, the frick it wasn't, man. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to kill the guy on the opposite side of the ball. And if you're blocking somebody as a receiver, you're supposed to take the guy's head off. You want to hurt the other person. It's like one of the few sports. It's like I really want to hurt this guy.
yeah,
And that's okay. It's not for everyone. That most people probably can't play football, not the way it's supposed to be played.
right.
So, anywho,
Jay,
so what now? What now, Michigan? Will you continue? Well, I believe you continue to fight the NCAA and deny, 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 and lay the burden of proof on them now that the season is over.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that that's what you have to do, and it seems to me like that's what they're gonna do. Um,
Hmm.
and and time will tell, but I just don't see a whole lot out of it. I feel like the reporting has been suspicious from the beginning. It's like we're trying to stir things. It's like we're trying to stir the pot all the time, and anytime that's happening, I just my BS radar kind of goes off. And I'm not saying that there's nothing there. I'm not saying that they didn't do anything. They very well might have done something. I'm just saying that, all of this crap. I mean, we had fans talking about the death penalty back a couple of months ago. And I was like, are you guys crazy? Like, that is not going to happen. Like, what are you talking about? And so, it was just that everybody was in a frenzy. And, yeah, I mean, we'll see. But that's pretty much all I've got to say on it. Is it just I don't think that much is going to happen.
Yeah. What this also does is change the perception of the Big Ten again. This will now put in the committee's minds that the Big Ten can have success in the playoffs and could give teams the benefit of the doubt when
Yep.
it comes to playoff seeding
Yep.
or making it at all. Because the Big Ten didn't have that benefit of the doubt. Other than Ohio State, all of the other Big Ten teams up until now have been embarrassed in the playoffs. But now we started this thing off winning the championship with Ohio State, and we ended it with Michigan winning the championship against
Washington.
Washington. But let's be real. I guess that's a side note. I was about to say Alabama because let's be real. The national championship was Michigan versus Alabama.
Yep.
And it's so interesting. It's like the SEC and the Big Ten have basically had the national championship in back-to-back seasons. Like this year, it was Michigan and Michigan and Alabama in the Rose Bowl, but it was a
Mhm.
semifinal game.
Mhm.
And last year, it was Ohio State versus Georgia in the Peach Bowl, which was
Right.
also a semifinal
Right.
game. It's like that's back-to-back years the Big Ten and the SEC went at it, and pretty much the national championship game, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as much as this being a kind of a secondarily Big Ten podcast, we got to give the Big Ten credit because as much as we would get frustrated with it and get frustrated with the SEC success, nobody else has two teams that have won a national championship in the playoff era outside of the SEC. So the Big Ten is now separated itself from everybody else, that it is the SEC and it is the Big Ten, and there's still gain to ground, ground to gain. And I want to see it continue to tilt, but there's no doubt who the heavyweights are at this point.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, the Big Ten at the top is looking like, yeah, it can't compete with the SEC. I mean, the last 2 years proved that. After like the top two, though, it's a real struggle after that. But I mean, you're judged on your top two, though. So I
Yeah,
guess the Big Ten is passing there.
yeah,
Um,
and I'm basing that on bringing in an Oregon program that I think can be a national championship contender under Dan Lanning in the next 3 to 4 years. When
yeah.
I say contender, I think they can be Final Four type teams. Can they win one? I don't know.
I don't know. Dan Lanning doesn't impress me in big games very much.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, he didn't do good this year. I like his aggressive style. We'll see if it pays off.
Yeah, he reminds me a little bit of Ryan Day.
You think so?
In big
Really?
game. Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
Well, I mean, I
again,
think
the sample size is too small.
I think he loses them differently. He loses them balls to the wall, whereas Ryan Day loses them like in a fetal position, clammed
The
up.
Washington game on the road this year says otherwise.
How so?
It wasn't balls to the wall. I thought they had some very, very questionable play calling and decision making in that game that lost them the game.
Well, yeah, he was over aggressive. He was going for it on like 4th and 2 and things, and he didn't take a field goal and points a couple of times. So, I mean, that's
I
what I
have to
mean.
go back and look in detail. I just remember at the time, I'm like, man, Oregon's making some terrible decisions here, and they're outplaying Washington.
Yeah,
Now,
I
they
mean,
did not outplay them in the Pac-10 championship. Washington outplayed them, but
the decision that cost him was he didn't take an easy field goal. He went for it on 4th and 2, and then he had another 4th and 2, and instead of punting and pinning them deep with the lead at about the 45-yard line, he decided to go for it again, misses it again, and gives the Washington the ball. They drive down and score, and now the whole game's flipped on its head. So he was over aggressive to a detriment in that Washington game. It still ended up in a loss.
okay.
But in opposite fashion of how Ryan Day would lose one of those kind of games.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, again, poor decision making though.
Yeah, there was poor decision making. Yeah.
Yeah. Michigan, do you realize that you guys are the ones that ended Nick Saban? Michigan is the one, they are the last team to beat Nick Saban because as we
Yeah.
know now, it's old news. Nick Saban is retired. And breaking news, Kalen DeBoer, for that matter, realized he will probably never win a title at Washington, and he's going to Alabama. So you kind of broke him. It's like you broke two coaches. You broke Nick Saban. He's like, I'm not going to be able to win anymore. The greatest of all time. and then you also broke Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, really good teams that are playing well can do that. Ohio State in 2014, they pretty much ran that guy out of Wisconsin. I can't think of his name now. After he lost,
Oh,
after
yeah,
he lost
yeah,
59
yeah,
to
yeah,
nothing, like he went on back to Oregon State, and
yeah,
yeah, and then Mark Helfrich for Oregon. He was never the same after that national championship game. He just dropped
yeah.
straight off, and so good
Mhm.
teams do that. And but to be Saban's last game and you beat him, that's something.
It means something. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, Michigan fans are really gonna just savor in like his last losses to Michigan. This podcast we're gonna savor in Nick Saban's last losses to a Big Ten team. I don't care who it was, but I'm just happy it was to a Big Ten team.
right.
So um, that's that. Man, oh man, that's just that's. I mean, that's crazy. But I will say this: this is a hot take too. But I think Pete Carroll is a better college coach than Nick Saban.
Yeah, I know you
I think
think
I might
that.
have mentioned that in a previous podcast
Yeah,
too,
you
by the way. I
did.
don't remember at this point.
Yeah, no, you've mentioned it, and you gave your reason for it, and I mean, I think that you
Hmm.
can make the case that if he would have stayed around, and he would have
No, they were
had
starting to
this,
get in trouble or something.
yeah, if he would have stayed around, and if he would have had this format, then if he would have started in 2005 or six or seven, and gone into this playoff format, he very well could have. I mean,
Yeah.
those USC teams just didn't lose national games.
No, I
they'd
mean,
lose some goofy game in the year, but
yeah.
when you played them in the postseason, they showed up.
Yeah, they're 2000. I mean, if you would have started, yeah, the postseason in 2003, I believe their 2003 team probably wins. I think on a neutral field, they would have beat that LSU team. Um, their 2007 team with John David Booty, I think would have beaten, who was the national? I think they would have beaten
LSU.
LSU. Yeah, I think they would have beaten LSU. 2006, I don't think they would have beaten Florida, but it would have been close. But 2008, they would have beaten Florida. That was a team with Mark Sanchez.
Hmm.
Um, oh, what was the running back? Joe McKnight. Joe
Yeah.
McKnight was their running back who passed away.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, they had the transfer from Arkansas, that receiver Damian Williams, Ray Maluga, Brian Cushing, Taylor Mays. That defense was just so loaded. That 2008 USC team was just a loaded team, and I swear they must have been on drugs that game they lost to Oregon State on the road. I still can't believe they lost that game. They can't believe they lost that game. They just showed up high. They all freaking smoked weed a couple hours before the game and just didn't perform.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, something went awry because that was just too good of a team. But
Yeah, it's like I
I,
think like Pete Carroll, he was such an amazing coach, but I think he was such a he was loose reining on his players. He let them pretty
yeah,
much do whatever. I don't think he had a lot of discipline there, but
it
he could
somehow it
coach.
worked. But I mean, they were not like, um, unprepared teams. I mean, they were
Mhm.
prepared, and so whatever he did worked. It's different ways to skin a cat. Ryan Day just hasn't figured out what way
No,
to
and we're
skin
gonna
his
get to
cat.
and
Yeah,
trust us, everyone. We're gonna get back to Ohio State very soon. We're waiting for the offseason dust to completely settle so we can break down exactly what has happened, because we're not going to make any speculations here about Ohio State's coaching staff and stuff. I think at this point we know who all of the players, like who have returned and have transferred in and stuff, but you never know. Could be a couple more out there that decide to transfer in from Alabama, wink, wink,
yeah,
kind of thing. So we'll see. There's, like I said, changes to the coaching staff, but back to Michigan. Uh, for your team next season, well, we'll do an episode on that probably around spring ball time. But as of now, I do know that you have a lot of guys leaving off of this team. I mean, your entire offensive line is gone. I think Roman Wilson is probably going to go. Um, we don't know anything about Donovan Edwards, I don't believe. We don't know anything about JJ McCarthy. I know that Jalen Harrell and Braden McGregor have declared. Junior Colson has declared.
I
Mike
think it'd be
Sanders
good
still
for
has
McCarthy. I think it'd be
eligibility.
good for McCarthy to just come back and see if he could, get some more reps in the throwing game and just get more film out there. I mean, he would get drafted for sure, but he'd be a big project because he just hasn't. His offense has just been so
Yeah.
oriented towards the run.
Well, I mean, that's their strength, though. They just won a
Yeah.
national championship. You
No,
can't
I
knock them
don't I
for
don't
that. But it's
blame
like, yeah, it
them.
hurts
I
McCarthy.
just
But
I just mean him as a quarterback. It's harder to evaluate him because you have such a smaller sample size.
yeah, it's just it's their style of play, man, and they're not going to change. And why would they at this point? I mean, if
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy wants to sling the ball around, sorry, Michigan fans, he would need to transfer because I don't see them changing up their game style next year. I believe Michigan's going to hit the transfer portal and they're going to find a lot of success because they've been like transfer portal kings in the offseason. Their recruiting hasn't been that great. It's been just okay. Like your recruiting does need to get better, Michigan. It does. But your transfer portals
what
have
would the
been on the
world look like,
nose.
Jay?
What?
What would the world look like if my kid watches the Spider-Man stuff and they're into all these alternate universes and Spider-Man? It gets kind of
Hmm.
ridiculous, but if there was an alternate universe and JJ McCarthy transferred to Ohio State for his senior year because he wanted to show that he could put up numbers and won back-to-back titles at Michigan and Ohio State, what kind of world would that be? What kind of feeling does that give you?
So you want to talk about some crazy geeky stuff?
I
I'll
just
talk
want
about
I
some
just
crazy
want
geeky stuff.
your initial reaction. That's
It
all I'm asking
remain
for.
well. I'll
We
tell
don't
you
have to like
what.
we don't have to like
We're
dive into the depths of some
well. No. I'm just
hypothetical
going to mention
situation.
one thing.
It's never going to happen.
There was a flat. It was called the Flashpoint storyline. It was with the Flash. It came out in
Uh,
like 2011.
yeah.
But I didn't really read the comic book as much as I saw the movie. It was animated
Mhm.
2013. But basically, what happens was the Flash goes back in time to save his mom. It's not revealed that he saved his mom. Like that's why he went back in time. But he did. He saved his mom from dying and stuff. But it basically his world and then the present had completely changed and it was Armageddon and this, that, and the other. Um, like
Yeah, I know.
Superman's space rocket did not land in like Smallville, Kansas. It landed in frickin' Metropolis. So it became an experiment of the government. Aquaman and Wonder Woman were at war. And Batman, instead of his parents dying, he was murdered in the streets.
Is this your way of saying that would have cataclysmic effects for such a thing
Yes,
to happen?
this is my way of saying that would set the earth on fire. The
Yeah,
volcanoes, like the freaking magma chamber and the Yellowstone caldera would erupt,
right,
and the freaking San Andreas fault would break,
right,
and then like California would get washed
right.
away,
Yeah,
and like
JJ could
whatever
never play
happened in
for
Japan would be like
he could
child's
never
play
play
compared
for
to
Ohio
that.
State. I mean, he just couldn't play for Ohio State.
No.
No.
I mean, it's not gonna happen. I mean, it would never happen, but, like, I mean, we already have Will Howard,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah,
Yeah, it's
that
not
would
gonna
be
happen, and
freaking
it could never
crazy.
happen. Like, you just I because of the impossibleness of it, I just wanted to throw it out there, like, for fun's sake.
I know, but you started throwing in superhero stuff, man, and you see the shirt I'm wearing.
Yeah,
Yes, everyone, I am a huge geek.
yeah,
And you just can't say stuff like that, and I don't go off on these random tangents.
right. Yeah. So,
So, yeah.
we're gonna be back with some Ohio State content, soon. There's gonna be quite a bit to cover. We'll be having an episode coming out on Monday. Is that right, Jay? We'll be doing
Yeah, we'll
one.
figure it out.
Yeah,
We're gonna have a couple part series about Ohio State, but we
yeah,
definitely just we really wanted to, give you the proper praise, Michigan, for this episode because we're not going to be covering you guys again. But I just want to say thank you for all subscribing to us. Just know that you guys have allies on your side in the Ohio State um, fans, amongst the Ohio State fans. I mean, there are probably not many of them, but you have two allies here. And Thank you
Well,
for subscribing and watching our
we
video.
may be covering them again, but we're just not going to be covering you again in the near future. The next
Yeah,
several
in the near
episodes are going to
future.
be,
But yeah,
are
still
going to
check
be,
us out and
yeah,
everything. But yeah, we'll touch on you guys in spring ball and everything.
yeah. All
So
right, Jay, I'm good.
thank
You're
you,
good.
everybody.
Yep,
I don't have anything else, Michael.
that's it. All
All
right, thank you
right.
guys for watching. Look for the next episode coming out, and we'll see you soon.